Well, we've had a managerial departure. Euphemistically, that's what we call it. Watford have sacked the perm anyone from about 50 over the last few years.
But not for a while. Tom stayed there a while, hasn't he?
Tom Cleverley has
quite
gone.
a good job.
I'd looked at social media, and a lot of the Watford fans really feeling that he's been given a bit of a rum deal with the resource he had, and he seemed very popular. Let's chat now to a pal of his, former Watford striker, one of our own, of course, Troy Deeney. Hiya, Troy.
Hello, Troy.
Hello, gents. How are we?
Yeah, not too bad. You're obviously the first man we turn to. I mean, you're a pal of his.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about? As I said, looking at the immediate reaction of the fans, they're not. They're probably not surprised as it's the Pozzos, but still, they're not particularly happy about it, Troy.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's difficult because I don't know what the expectation is. You don't back him in January. You strip him of resources. You undermine him in January as well by leaking this information out that he could potentially get replaced. He stays professional, does a good job. They finished 12th in the league. They were in a position where at the start of the season they were talked about as relegation candidates as well. So when you look at it from that perspective, then yeah, absolutely great. He's done a solid job there. They're ready to kick off for next year. If you look where they was 3 months ago, right up there in the playoffs, you would argue that the tail end of the season has been poor. So you can understand why they've moved away. I just don't see what who you replacing him with and what's going to change. I don't think it's going to get any better, with getting rid of Tom Cleverley. But, Watford have decided to get rid of him. And the harsh facts are as well, which is not the great reading for Clebs, is since Boxing Day, if you look at the form guide, they've got 21 points since then, since Boxing Day. So they're bottom of the form guide with Derby, Blackburn and Cardiff, Luton all above them. So, you can make an argument for both, but I would argue that it's a bit of a mistake in the short term.
Rookery Mike, who we often turn to, the podcaster on Watford, this was he sent this 16 hours ago, Troy, on Twitter. He said, I wouldn't blame Tom Cleverley if he wanted to pursue other opportunities, but if Gino Pozzo sacks him, it'd be one of the most narrow-minded, short-sighted acts of self-sabotage he's committed at Watford FC, and there have been plenty. Every effort should be made to keep Tom Cleverley. So, again, that's a pretty good example of a sort of well-known Watford fan sort of preempting what was going to happen. So there was a feeling that this could happen today, Troy, was there? There'd been a few whispers. Yeah.
There's been a few whispers, like I said, since January, that they felt that they wanted that. I think, without being too harsh on Gino, I think he's probably given Klebs more rope than he has most people. He normally, once his mind's made up on chopping somebody, he's doing it, whether fans like it or not. You see the fan base obviously got behind Klebs, an ex-captain, ex-player. They've grown up with Klebs, if you get what I mean. But he also came in at a time when it was all over the place. He re-engaged both sets of fans, both the ones who come week in, week out, and the ones who decided to move away and just had no engagement with the ownership. So it was poor. I do think Klebs will land on his feet. I think that there's rumours of him looking at somewhere like Rangers is in with a shout, even Leicester. So, with all of that, I can see why, he will be disappointed and heartbroken in the short term, but be optimistic about the future.
I've got a few people in the betting. Steve Cooper seems to be favourite at 4-1. John Messino at Pompey, 9-1.
Did a great job there, yeah.
Ruud van Nistelrooy, rather interestingly, 9-1. Down at 11-1, Sean Dyche. An interesting...
I'm going to go... None of those above.
So you're going to vote for an Italian or someone we've never heard.
Troy's name's not on there, no, Paul.
Troy, you're at 25s, Troy, at the moment.
Well, I'll tell you now, I'll save you money.
The thing about Tom, he did seem to stop the rot. One of the questions we always used to ask people was, who's the Watford manager? It used to be quite a hard quiz question.
It did.
And he seemed to have come in, stop the rot, and...
But you have to ask the question, what kind of manager they need next? And I've mentioned a few names. Cooper. Do they need a Cooper? Do they need a Carsley? Do they need a...
They need to understand what they're doing and make a clear decision on that. From time to time, week to week, month to month, it changes. Clearly, they want to be back in the Premier League, right? That's the ambition. You would say... They sacked Klebs because they felt they could have got into the playoffs. That could be the only logical reason. They've obviously moved away from that. So they would probably look, in my opinion, to an Italian/Spanish model. I'd hazard I'd go more towards Italian. Sorry, I'm thinking as I'm talking here. Yeah. Towards Italian, because we've had a similar situation happen with us. When we ended the season poorly, they went, right, we're going to get an Italian guy in who knows the rules, going to be very firm, very strict, very logical. And then they'll go down that route. And then after 6 months, that won't work, and they'll change it all again anyway. So they need to figure out what they're going to do, but I would imagine it will be a Spanish or Italian coach off of my history with them.
Okay, good stuff. Nice one, Troy. Good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us at short notice to react to that. All the best.
Anytime. See you later, lads.
Take care. That's Troy Deeney. Watford.
No 25-1 insider trading there, Paul. Don't bother, basically.
Tom Cleverley's taken to Instagram. He said, after 9.5 years of my life as a lone player, captain, academy coach and head coach, time has come to an end at the club. After the sadness wears off, I will forever have a feeling of gratitude and happiness towards the club and the place and people of Watford. He goes on. It's quite a long piece. Go and read his piece. It's on Instagram. But yeah, certainly from the fans' reaction today, they do really feel like he's been.
I'd say he's done a good enough job as well to get another decent job. You know, he's not.
I mean, they have sacked popular managers before. They've never let that get in the way of making a decision. Look, you know, it's their club. They can do what they like, and they have to ride through all the jokes.
If they're thinking we're going to go into a summer and we've got to spend some money and those things, and he's not their man, then, you know. Anyway. Now better than the end of the summer, anyway.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.